There we go. How's it going, everyone? And welcome to another episode of No Excuses on VGWProductions.com and YouTube.com. The favorite show hosts are still.
Fenurian.
And Volasel, who is back today, although I have no idea if I'll be here next week or not. I probably won't. I don't know.
Giant
because
question mark.
Nobody has released a schedule for the coming week, although I somehow got to work tomorrow, but I don't know when or where or how. Anyway, we're here to bring you the latest news and commentary on the video games industry for the week. And if you'd like to get involved with the show, you can do so by sending us email at noexcusesvtw@gmail.com, or you can follow us on the Twitter at noexcusesvtw, or you can join us in the Discord server, which you can easily get to by clicking the link in the description box underneath the show archive, or you can get there by going to vtwproductions.com and clicking on the show logo on any of our recent show hosts, and that'll take you directly to the Discord server where you can interact with any of the show hosts or other listeners to the show.
Do we even have an updated show post?
No, I don't think so at this point.
Do we even use the Twitter?
No.
I don't use it very much. Like I mainly use it to lurk. I don't often use it to post, and I treat it like a personal Twitter anyway. So
Let's face it, we're all happier without Twitter.
yeah, it's not good for you.
It is really not good for you.
If you carefully groom your list of follows and mutes, you can actually use it relatively effectively to see things that you're interested in, but that's a lot of work.
It is. Definitely not worth it.
Constant maintenance. No. Twitter's bad for you. Life is just so much happier without Twitter.
It seriously is. Alright, so this week, we're actually going to do a normal show. Yay.
Give or take.
Give or take, anyway. Yeah, the last few weeks there's been absolutely nothing worth talking about. To the point where last week we just largely just turned on the stream and just faffed around for however long we faffed around for.
We played the Jackbox games for about 2 hours.
Yeah. Alright, so I guess we'll just dive into weeks, and terrible as it might sound, my week has largely been Fallout 76.
Why?
Well, I logged into it initially to see just how bad they screwed up. Because it's Bethesda, of course they're going to screw up. But I'm actually surprised. It's not horrendous. It's just bad.
It only took them 18 months to get to the level of a bad launch game.
Yes. If it had launched in this condition, no, everyone would have just said, oh yeah, okay, classic standard issue Bethesda launch, and move on. But the game is actually a game now. If you go and start exploring, you will find stuff. You can find people. There is stuff to do. And if you're willing to fork out money, there is a communist robot that is there just to take the piss out of you. Which is a new thing they've had, by the way.
I don't want a communist robot.
Really?
There've been people online. There've been people online getting pretty heavily memed on.
Yeah.
Because they're expected to distribute food and items,
yeah,
but it just gives them propaganda leaflets.
From what it sounds like in the description, it's basically just a reskin of the Salvager robot, which they want money for, because of course they do. But it does mention you can send it out and it might bring back propaganda. That's all it brings back, is Chinese propaganda. So the joke's on those people who bought it.
I'm pretty sure it's not finding it. I'm pretty sure it's manufacturing it.
I'm pretty sure it's manufacturing it. So yeah, and there's a lot of people online who just simply didn't get the joke. Although, admittedly,
those people make the world go round.
Don't they just? So the game is fine. I've actually been borderline having fun with it. I say borderline because I could be getting invested and actually starting to get somewhere, and all of a sudden the game decides that I've reached the compulsory level of enjoyment and drops me through the drain.
The crust of the earth is not quite so invested in your fun.
No, it is not. It has some weird syncing issues still, where if you have a bit of a server hiccup and lag bad enough that you lose synchronization, you don't know about it initially until you start walking around a bit further. because apparently when it's deciding what to actually render, it will ping home. So you can be walking around and absolutely everything is perfectly fine until you start leaving that initial area where buildings no longer actually change how they're rendering. So buildings, instead of becoming buildings, just keep that very low textured thing they do when they're a long way off.
I see.
These really weird, blurry boxes which may or may not have impact physics. And by that point, you're just about to fall through the train anyway, so you might as well quit the game. If it doesn't crash first, of course. So, there is fun to be had if you're willing to put
This
up
still
with the
sounds
bumps.
it sounds like 18 months and they've made it to pre-alpha.
This is 18 months to, not quite pre-alpha, but I'd say early beta.
See, the thing is, though, that even if they had left this on the workbench for 18 months and then released it now, it would be appalling because people would have been waiting for it so long.
Yeah.
So there's still no forgiveness to be had for this.
Oh, no.
This is still a complete failure to carry out what you intended.
Oh, absolutely. And we should certainly not forgive Bethesda for what they've done. They've made an absolute mess of it. And the damage has been done. People have been ripped off. And let's not forget, the global shortage of canvas.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know when that's going to end.
Yeah, I don't think it's ending anytime soon. But, yeah, if they'd launched the game as it currently is, I don't think anyone really would have batted an eye. They would have just wrote it off as a typical Bethesda launch. So, yeah, that's all there really is to say about it. It's fine now. It's okay. I wouldn't say it's
not setting
good.
a very high bar, to be honest.
No, well, the bar below before was somewhere around completely abysmal. So it's graduated and it evolved to basically okay.
This towering. It's kind of air.
It's
not,
kind of
not
air.
really. Doesn't really speak well of their performances as a games publisher, to be honest.
No, and again, we've said it before. The big bugbear that they've really been carrying around is the creation engine. Fallout 76 should not be on the creation engine.
I think the creation engine is just a symptom, really. Like, why are they using the creation engine? The explanation for that is not the creation engine, but the explanation for that is the reason why their games are bad. Like, they're using the creation engine not because they have to, but because somebody has decided that this is the route that they're going to go, and they're going to just spill that one out indefinitely for all that it's worth. It's not. It's not. Oh well, the creation engine is bad, and that's the reason why Fallout 76 is bad. No, it's the entire concept plus all of the decisions that went into using the creation engine, and then their attempt to apply it. Those are all bad as well, and they are more fundamental than the nuts and bolts of the creation engine. Because the creation engine, I mean, it's done work for them over the past, I don't know however many years they've been using it now.
Since Oblivion, in one form or another.
Yeah, so I mean, it's getting a bit grey, but ultimately, there's nothing wrong with it in the conventional sense. Like, it does its job. However, it's too primitive for what they're trying to apply it to. Mm-hmm. Their decision to use an old engine was silly.
Yes,
and it was because they didn't. Because I honestly don't believe that the game Fallout 76 was ever made in the conventional sense. I feel like they slapped together a bunch of maps and assets using the exact same equipment they put together Fallout 4.
Well, we know that's the case.
They glued some netcode.
You can find most of Fallout 4's assets
to the back of it.
Yeah, you can find most of Fallout 4's assets in the files.
Yep.
Yeah, so they never made this game. This game never existed. It's just they created an idea using marketing that this game existed, and they bolted some netcode to it, and then pushed it out into reality. It was never designed to work in a very real sense.
Yeah,
it was designed. I have a huge amount of difficulty believing that Fallout 76 was ever anything other than a cynical cash grab, because they didn't do ground up development on it.
They really didn't.
That shows just a lack of care for the product, let
Mhm.
alone the customer.
Especially when they start trotting out things like Fallout First. It's a subscription to a single player potentially game that honestly doesn't work properly in the first place.
I thought it was a joke.
Nope, it was not.
You know, I did. I thought it was a joke because it was too ridiculous. Like, they already managed to get people to pay for a broken product once. Now they want them to do it periodically? You must be kidding.
Yep, got to keep paying. And that will give you access to, private servers so you can play it alone without. And one experience I actually had was someone following me around with what sounded like a Clint Eastwood soundboard. I have no idea
see.
why.
Because that's the sort of thing people online do.
It is, because internet. So, yeah, the game is basically fine now. Fine is as good as it's going to get, I think. Ugh.
Oh, my sound driver died on me.
Oh, fun. That's not supposed to
There we go.
happen.
No, I got it back. I'll talk about why I think it died in a second. I've been doing a whole lot of PC shenaniganery.
Shenaniganery, you say?
We'll get to that later.
Alright. What else? I haven't really done too much over the last few weeks because, everything's gone mental with the bugs still. And
The
I'm
coof.
essential service. Yay.
I'm
Taxi.
tired of being an essential service.
I'm supposed to be an essential service, but you wouldn't know from the workload we have.
Yeah. Though, I have been starting to poke around at looking at the next upgrade for my computer, and I think at this point it's going to be a large-scale SSD. I've only got a little one in there.
Well, most people only do. They stick their OS on that and maybe a couple core programs and put everything else on a regular drive.
Yeah, like what I really need to do either is upgrade my RAM or probably my GPU. GPU is a rather expensive proposition though.
What video card you got?
1050.
Okay.
It's nothing special. I think it's only a 2 gig as well.
2 gigs more than enough for pretty much everything with dedicated video memory.
Yeah. But,
My graphics card was found in a coal measure.
yeah, but the old system is starting to chug a bit depending on what I'm playing at the time. But putting an SSD in it will, I think, fix up a lot of the issues I've been starting to have. Namely because I've just filled up my hard drive again.
Yeah.
What else? That's really been about it for me this week. Or the last couple of weeks, I suppose. Unless you want to hear about how, for some stupid reason, I spent 2 hours yesterday trying to solo a field boss in Black Desert Online. I got him down to 40%.
You managed to spend 2 hours fighting without getting ganked?
Yeah, most people don't gank on that server.
Huh.
Character to fish, walk away, and make bank. There is someone who's just going around, and anyone outside the safe areas will just rack up kills. And they, of course, had to make their character look like the perfect, sweet little lolly type character. Because of course they did. So,
FBI open up.
yeah, pretty much. It's not terror levels, but they have added a class which is basically little girls.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, the reality is that makes money.
Dems
There's a lot
makes
a lot of underlying material there that I don't want to contemplate, but it's always profitable.
Yeah. Yep, it is. Thankfully, yeah, not at terror levels. All the costumes and things you can give them are fairly conservative, and at least on that class, look like armor, or at least a dress. Not like something like the
Well,
Dark
it-
Knight, where basically all their armor is somewhere along the line of fishnets and stilettos.
I'm pretty sure that that's what that demographic is into.
Yeah, gotta have your edgy class. Whoops. So Vol, your week, sir.
Well, my week has been, kind of a mess as expected because of my country still being in lockdown despite not actually having much of a significant problem with the Wu flu at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're still on like over the course of several months we've had like 16 deaths or something.
Yeah.
That's like, I mean, a death is a tragedy, but 16 in a country of 5 million people is not actually huge.
Yeah.
So, yeah, at any rate, so far every prediction that I've made about the progress of the disease worldwide has turned out to be absolutely correct. But unfortunately, the government is not interested in acting as though this virus behaves as a virus and is more interested in, putting on a ridiculous parade of how enthusiastic they are about dealing with the problem to the extent that our economy is imploding.
They just got upset that their old virtue signaling tactics weren't working, so they made this whole Wu flu. Look how shut down we are, and how much we hate the average blue collar worker. That's their new way of virtue signaling.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I think that while I think that generally speaking, most of the pro shutdown, the loud pro shutdown voices in American politics are largely cynical. I think that the New Zealand ones are largely naive. Like they're basically just looking at what, say, America is doing and copying it because they think it's a good idea to copy them. I really don't think much thinking is genuinely going on.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, that basically means my movements are rather limited and that I spend my time doing, 12-hour shifts at work. Or being at home, sleeping off 12-hour shifts at work.
That
So
sounds more like it.
I haven't, or standing in queues at the supermarket. Long queues. Very long queues. That have been made significantly larger by the mandatory distance of 2 meters between each person. But, yeah, it's not been the greatest of weeks, even though, on paper, I've got a ton of free time. But in reality, I spend a lot of that free time either asleep or not feeling energetic enough to do very much of anything.
Yeah, I've noticed that the lethargy tends to just set in.
Yeah, it's like I've got this whole mountain of video to play, but by the time that my time off rolls around, it's like I've been bled of all motivation. There's nothing left. I'm just a dried up husk of my former self. I'm sure that I could rustle up some motivation if either of these two chumps would play Final Fantasy with me, but that hasn't been happening yet.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll change. Foreshadowing.
Maybe.
But yeah, so basically, I have now been caught between the rock and a hard place of FGO and Azure Lane both trying to launch major events simultaneously again for like the second time in a few months. So I'm attempting to hardcore grind 2 mobile games at once without bothering to set up BlueStacks on my computer to play one there, which is gonna come to an end eventually, I think. But yeah, so we're in Azure Lane. It's a relatively standard pattern event. It's the rerun of Crimson Echoes, which has been the gacha has been very good to me. I've only done a couple of 10 pulls on it so far, and I've gotten like 3 copies of Amagi, the battlecruiser, who was one of my top targets, and I've gotten a copy of Hinazuki as well, who is unbelievably average but completely adorable. But generally speaking, that event's pretty standard. It is a rerun, but they've decided that they're going to have to put together some policy changes for the English server of Azure Lane because I think from what it sounds like their staff have been saying is that their staff that play on the EN server are getting burned out, and they figure that if they are getting burned out, then probably they need to do something. And it's because that they've been furiously trying to catch the English server up to the Chinese and Japanese servers, which were originally at 12 months ahead or so.
Ah, right.
And we're getting pretty close, but it eventually ended up that they jammed the most recent Royal Maids event onto the Polaris event, onto the Northern Parliament event, which means 3 large-scale events that are all quite grindy, all back-to-back. And but has basically had a massive fatigue effect on the player base. It's not actually been manifesting so much in fatigue, because part of the art of playing Azure Lane is to minimize the effort that you have to put in by designing fleet compositions that can really take care of themselves quite well. But the problem is that there's simply not enough gacha fuel going around to pull on all the banners. But and that's making people quite unhappy, because they don't really want to funnel huge money into it, especially considering Azure Lane won over most of its players by being the most generous of the major gachas.
Yep.
So you're sort of running against the grain of player psychology there. But so they're gonna alter the order of deployment of things, which has got a whole bunch of people worried that we're going to fall behind again. But they're pretty confident that we won't. I think that it's more that we will get new events in a different order than the Chinese and Japanese servers will get them, so that they can put minor events in between major events and stop people from completely burning out. In FGO, they have deployed the Apocrypha event, which is quite silly in a lot of ways, because most of the limited time events in FGO are quite silly. But it's sort of framed in a serious format, because, well, Apocrypha was a relatively serious story, but the way the story has played out so far, it's mainly rag on Shakespeare season, pretty much.
That's what he's there for.
Everybody is constantly suspecting him of causing trouble, and him of being responsible, and him of secretly being an enemy agent, and so on and so forth. And he's very bad at putting up arguments as to why this would not be the case, because he thinks the story would be more interesting if he was. But it's been done in the same format as the Solomon raid, which means that there are a limited number of kills per boss. So the first wave of bosses were deployed, and we completely obliterated them in a matter of a couple of hours, because there was only I think something like several 100,000 fights per boss, and that vanished rapidly. Second time, they decided that, okay, so I guess everybody is on quarantine and we're available to play. So they stepped it up and increased them by an order of magnitude, and it seems to have lasted approximately the right amount of time, increasing by one order of magnitude the available battles. So I think they had dramatically underestimated their rate of progress. And it seemed to be about right, because when I went to bed, they had taken out Atlante, and there was, I think Atlante's node was on a 7 or 8 hour timer remaining to switch over to the next boss. And when I woke up, the only one left standing was Spartacus with 300,000 fights left. So I think they got the timing about right the second time round. So hopefully that'll continue. It's been extremely good for QP grinding, and I managed to increase several servants' skills up to 10th rank, because there's just QP bursting out of every orifice of this event in vast quantities. I'd say that on a per AP basis, these fights are almost as good as farming the max level doors. So in addition to that, of course, you're completing the event, and you're also getting QP out of the rewards ladders. So it's been a very good method of grinding QP, and they're relatively good for material drops as well. I've managed to farm up quite a bit of that as well. But it's quite grindy still, but it seems like I'm getting towards the end of the ladder on day 3 or something. So it's grindy, but it's as grindy as you want it to be. If you're just I don't want to go back to QP hell again for the next 6 months, then you just go hardcore. But if you don't want to go grindy, because if you're a long-term player, you should be able to create a strategy that is, at least for some bosses, a 1-turn kill, and probably 3 to 4 for other bosses. It should be relatively easy, even if you're one of those poor saps like me who doesn't have a waiver. You can usually put together a quick kill strat, which will allow you to farm it really quickly. So if you've got a good stock of apples, you should be able to build up a nice hoard of QP to keep you in good standing for the next few months, especially if you're also like me and never pull any servants, because the gacha hates me.
The gacha
Well,
is
FGO gacha hates me.
seriously
I'm pretty
hating
sure.
you.
Pretty sure the AL gacha has taken all of my good fortune. But well, you can't have everything, I suppose. At any rate, it's a relatively funny little story so far. I don't know whether it's going to go anywhere more interesting than it has. They keep hinting that it will, but it hasn't done anything yet. But yeah, it's just something to fill in the time between events, really, because the Lost Belt was really good, and apparently the first one is one of the worst ones. And I thought it was still really good. So yeah, looking forward to that. I still haven't been able to get up the motivation to watch any of the new season's anime. They just haven't really excited me at all. But I've since then completed rewatches of El Malloy Chronicles and El Malloy Case Files, I should say, and of Babylonia, which is only just finished, and I watched it through again. It was still great the second time around, but I don't think it's great for anybody who doesn't already like the story.
You need to know what the background plot is for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, it's very much a story that's written for people who are already a fan, but like it doesn't stand on its own nearly as well as something like Fate Zero does. And Fate Zero is already asking quite a lot for you to take in that first big long exposition dump.
A massive exposition dump.
Yeah, but as far as just the sort of visual spectacle goes, there's still a lot to be found in the Babylonia anime. Like, the fights are just great. All of them are great. There are no bad ones.
Yeah.
There are some, Apocrypha has some bad fights and some good fights. They run the gamut from being really dumb to being really awesome, whereas all of them in Babylonia are awesome.
Yeah. Also, cheesecake.
Pretty much
random cheesecake.
There's a huge amount of awesome fights, there's a huge amount of fan service, and there's a huge amount of unbelievably bombastic monologuing from both villains and heroes alike. So pretty much the entire thing is the anime series equivalent of a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. Like, it's just all pure popcorn from start to finish. Everything is about flash and bang.
They did a great job with Merlin. You really just want to reach to the screen and smack the smug off his face.
It's like he hasn't done anything especially wrong on screen, but you can still tell he's slimy as heck.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great series if you're a fan of Type Moon at all. Though you've already seen it, you don't need me to tell you that. Mm-hmm. I've been trying to needle Fern to watch it. I don't know how much progress he's made because he always seems to find more work to do.
I get distracted by shiny things.
He's distracted by Fallout. This is grimy things, not shiny things.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of greasy, yes. Black Desert Online's very shiny, but that's also something you just set running in the background and then minimize it to the system tray.
But yeah, I didn't intend to get myself falling down the black hole of mobile games again when I had like a 4-day weekend to invest in anything else, but I ended up doing so again because those bastards, they managed to launch 2 major events. But
that's how they get you.
So I mean, there've been plenty of nice roomy gaps in the FGO schedule of late for me to relax. Like, FGO was pretty much on the back burner right up until this new event launched. There just wasn't anything really pressing to do. So I was able to just relax on that account. Mm-hmm. But it looks like I'm getting towards the end of the most mandatory parts of this event already. 3 days in with like how many days is it left to go? 12 days left to go. I've got 1.7 million out of 2 million on the points ladder. I think it only goes up to 2 million. Yeah. So I've nearly gotten all of the rewards on the points ladder. So it's just a matter of getting all of the extra Noble Phantasm copies for the welfare servant Sieg, who nobody likes because he's cardboard. And then, picking up whatever laws there are for challenge quests and clearing out all the Apple quests and that. So it seems like it's relatively undemanding, generally speaking, because I devised a strategy to one turn kill all of the Berserker bosses. So I was able to just burn through a whole bunch of rounds of that really quickly. And then I can just clear whatever I feel like taking out of the shop at my leisure. So I made way faster progress than I expected on the events, unless there's a secret second half that I didn't know about that's going to take up a whole bunch more of my time. I think that I will be able to go back to relaxing on the gacha for a while and go back to playing normal games like a normal person.
Yeah, that's something you probably should do.
Yeah, but I mean, these things are designed to do that, right? Like the whole point of them is that they're supposed to capture you and keep you on the treadmill.
Yeah.
I'm at least cognizant that it's happening. It's just a matter of deciding what it is that I actually want to accomplish and then unhooking myself from the engine after that. At least I'm not playing World of Warcraft. Considering the sheer quantity of World of Warcraft media that I've been barraged with on YouTube over the past couple of weeks, I'm pretty glad that I haven't gone back to it, to be honest. Because it's just been an endless stream of people doing Shadowlands previews and talking about how wonderful it all is.
Oh, that's what it is. Yeah, right. YouTube, sponsoring.
Especially since they're all absolutely gaga over Torghast, which is just basically like a slightly polished version of the Palace of the Dead.
Yeah.
But and it really does look like they've done some interesting. They put an interesting new spin on what Final Fantasy does in Palace of the Dead. But of course, I haven't played any of the successors to Palace of the Dead. Maybe Final Fantasy 14 already has the stuff that they're doing as well. I don't know. But they've done some interesting things on those. So it's always this lingering thing trying to tempt me to go back to the game. So I'm like, Ari, remind me not to go back to Warcraft.
It's bad for you. Don't do it.
I mean,
although I think that in the final event, Ari will be the first one of us to buckle because somebody he doesn't want to disappoint will ask him to go back.
Almost certainly.
It is. I tell other people to reinforce the fact in my own brain that it's a bad idea because I build up time where I don't give Blizzard money for doing dumb things when somebody will inevitably go, we should totally do this together. Hey, you're my old friend from forever ago. We should totally do a thing. I'll keep talking to you until you say yes.
I mean, at least with Shadowlands, they're not being appallingly awful.
Well, I mean, there are promising signs. We don't know that for sure, though.
Yeah.
Just remember, it's Blizzard.
It's Blizzard.
They did come out and acknowledge that they really screwed up badly in the previous one by deliberately ignoring all the feedback because they assumed that it was wrong.
Because the customer can't possibly know what they're talking about.
Well, their rationale was that the build that they were putting on beta was out of date.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore any feedback they got was just backburnered because they had a current internal build that they felt was better. It was something that was basically along those lines was their rationale throughout, which meant that most of the feedback got backburnered. And in the end, what came out was their vision. And anytime Blizzard is allowed free reign with their vision alone, it always turns out apocalyptically bad.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so long as they remember that their job is actually to please their customers and not to stroke their own creative bonus, then it'll be fine.
Oh my. Yeah, it is something that Blizzard is notorious for doing, unfortunately.
Yeah, but unfortunately, this means that like fully half of my recommended videos when I click YouTube.com, like fully half of them some days are just like people gushing about World of Warcraft. And like, nope, not gonna do it.
Yeah. I finally just blocked the recommended video feed with my ad blocker. And I always load into my subscription page.
Yeah, if I do go and look at Shadowlands, it will be blind. If. And it's a pretty big if.
I just bumped my microphone.
Don't do that. Although I think I've already got people who are just kind of standing outside the door ready to start banging on it and asking me to come play.
Yeah.
Come heal for us, come tank for us, come do DPS for us.
No!
Type of thing.
We all came from a World of Warcraft background. So those people exist in our past somewhere.
Yeah.
And as soon as every single time, without fail, Whenever a new Alex pack comes out, they come out of the woodwork.
Hell, I'm related to half of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fortunately, my way of thinking doesn't really accommodate much World of Warcraft play anymore. Like, because for me, World of Warcraft is about in-game PVE. Like, there's just the developers have put so much attention on that the rest of it just kind of fades into the background. Like, your objective is to get to the raids and to see the cool raid fights and so on, participate in that content. But I know for a fact that I just don't have the time to dedicate to that type of thing these days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I'm not in quarantine, I don't have the time to dedicate to that sort of stuff. But in the case of, say, Final Fantasy, it's not about in-game for me. It's about all of the other stuff. It's about the story and all of the dicking around in the gold saucer that I do on a regular basis. That's what that game is about. So that game still has a lot of legs for me because it's all the other stuff in the game that I'm interested in. But in the case of World of Warcraft, the thing in which I am most interested is the thing that I definitely can't participate in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't do it either, even with more free time. My free time is more scattered and random. So, I mean, if just too many weeks in a row, it's too possible that on a Friday or a Saturday, I got to work in the evening, or I got to stay late one day, and I'm not going to be able to make it, or I'm going to be too tired when I get home.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately, I've had a lot of days this week past where I get home, I take a shower, and I grab a bite to eat, and then I go straight to sleep so I can get up and go back to work. That's been my life. It's not great.
running that wheel, wage slave.
It's not great, man.
It is really not.
I really want it to come to an end as soon as reasonably possible.
That's going to be me next week.
Yeah. But yeah, if WoW does happen again, it is definitely going to be a blind thing, and I don't think it's going to last particularly long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if they can recapture what it is necessary to get me to go back to the game. It's just, a lot of the mystique is gone. Like they are very much building a new theme park attraction rather than a new theme park.
And they run in a cycle too. Like every time they do a good expansion, then the next expansion comes out and they're back to their old ways. They've learned nothing.
Yeah. I mean, they had a thing going with Classic, but I just don't know enough people that wanted to play it.
Yeah, I think it's just like it's like the console back and forth, right? Like they have a successful season and then they get hubristic and then they go back to sucking for a season.
Yeah. Yeah, the new lineup of consoles, the Sex Box and the PS5 are just PS5 I'm not really confident on at this point.
I've seen mixed things from both consoles coming out this coming season. It's hard to make a call until they actually
if PS5 had been definitively following through on their comprehensive backwards compatibility that they originally promised, then they would have my attention and I would already be looking at arranging money to purchase one.
Yeah.
But
as it stands, though,
if they can't do that, then I'm not interested. You've got to produce a substantial library before you're going to get that sale out of me.
Yeah. As it stands, though, Microsoft is just making the same noises as always, whereas Sony's getting up and they're throwing around a whole new slew of buzzwords, but none of which we know anything about, and even if they actually mean anything at this point.
Yeah, because you got a new console coming out. Great, cool. We're also in this era where you don't need the new console right away to play all the games that are going to come out.
No, because a lot of them will come out on PC or
not even that. Console. Yeah, they'll come out on PS4 and PS5 for the longest time until developers find the groove. And then it'll still be a while before that must-have game is PS5 only.
Yep. They want to make it sell, they just do Dark Souls 4. That'll get people to buy it.
I mean, you gotta have a serious feature on there that I need to have to get me to buy the product at day one.
As it stands, neither console's really made a case for that.
Yeah. Well, that season is coming up, right? They're going to be making their big plays over the next month or two to try and start building the hype engine, because they've all of the all of the E3 stuff has all been cancelled, and so they're all going to be internally furiously spending their work at home time building up marketing montages and stuff like that, trying to work out the way they can fine tune their spiel.
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting to see how they all deploy it without an E3 to deploy it at. But I think that they're going to be spooling up that engine over the next couple months.
I think this next year is actually, on that regard, is going to be very interesting because at this point we don't need an E3 anymore.
Yeah, I think E3 were the only people who thought that they were necessary.
Yeah. So we shall see. We shall see.
Indeed.
Anyway, that was at the end of my wandery sort of week.
All right. My week is, there's a lot of stuff in it, but none of it's too substantive, so we can just kind of ramble through it real quick before we get to the news.
Ramble.
We'll start with what I did at the beginning of the week. I finished the Mega Man Zero series. I bought that collection to give me a meaty chunk of video games to play. And so I finished platinum that finally. I mean, it's more Mega Man Zero stuff. If you like the Mega Man Zero series, which you'll like if you like the Mega Man X series, it's even more of that. Except the last two are Metroidvanias on top of it, so I liked it even more. There's really not a whole lot else to say about it. That's kind of all they are. You know if you'll like these games, they're not just based on what they are. But the port's fine, totally worth your money. Then if you like it, I mean, $40 for 6 games for 50 hours of this style of content, that's not bad.
Not bad at all.
So, it gets a full recommendation. The only thing I don't really feel super good about is the speedrun mode, where you can load up individual levels and try and top the world leaderboards, and you have to beat certain developer times for a Chivo. So that one's a little odd and not implemented very well, because you have to reconfigure your controls before you start playing every single level, because your settings are saved per level. And yeah, it just gets really obnoxious.
Who thought that was a good idea?
Somebody really dumb.
Apparently.
So, yeah, you do not want the dash button next to the shoot button, because you will not be able to dash and shoot.
But you need to be able to dash and shoot.
Yes.
You can't win the game if you don't.
Yeah, that's a thing that worked on the Game Boy, because the buttons were way closer. That does not work on a PlayStation or Xbox controller. So you have to rebind the controls for every single level in that particular mode. But everything else is just one-to-one ports to the other games. The new filters are fine. The screen sizes are fine. The way they handle the second, because 2 of the games were DS exclusive, so it has a second screen. They have taken steps to be sure that the games don't rely on the touchscreen as much as the DS did. But there is a radar and junk you can use to find hidden items or see enemy weak points or stuff on the second screen, and you can overlay it on the main screen or make the main screen tiny and put the DS screens beside it, but none of the options are particularly good. Thankfully, their workaround is just include most of the UI elements that were on the second screen buried somewhere in the start menu.
So that's something, at least.
So you don't need it to play it, which is good. And that's about it for that video game. I spent the middle of this week mostly working, but also doing some PC upgrades.
Ooh.
A friend of mine didn't want to go through the hassle of Craigslisting or eBaying a processor, and I don't know what the heck he upgraded to, but he sold me his old i7.
Nice.
So he sold it to me for $100. I forget the full specs on the thing, but it was way better than what I had. And I was rather embarrassed with how much I had to sit on the phone and go, okay, how do I do this again? It's been forever. Because it has been eons since I put a processor in a computer. But got it in there, and then got it set up, and I realized that this processor puts my computer above the recommended specs for a for VR headset on PC. And Oculus Link now lets you connect the Quest to the PC and use it as a VR headset for PC games, if you got a DisplayPort what you call it? Is it called DisplayPort? DisplayPort port. That's not comfortable to say. A DisplayPort port on your graphics card.
That sounds
which I do.
redundant.
Yeah. So I had one of those. I did not have a DisplayPort cable, but I managed to just go to Walmart and grab one. So got one of those. Got a splitter for it to split one end of it into HDMI 3.0 and DisplayPort because it has to go through the same wire. It's really weird. And then plug that back in and managed to get everything hooked up, and it works.
It sounds like some
while
MacGyver level nonsense.
It's not too bad. It's just a little bit of extra hassle to get it to work than it would be if I had a proper PC VR headset. But Link has only crashed on me about 4 times in the 4 days I've used it, so about 1 crash a day. And for a janky piece of beta software, that's pretty good. So, oops, I just bumped the mic again. But I'm not used to it being in this position for the show yet. But yeah, so the PC's fans will start spinning like crazies whenever I load up a VR game or any kind of video anything in VR. But it'll work. And
right.
Once the VR turns off, the fans go back to normal. So I guess it's working fine. So the first thing I did was I rebought Beat Saber and reinstalled Robo Recall and Arizona Sunshine because those are cross-buy. If you buy them on one platform, you get them all.
Oh,
I had to rebuy Beat Saber is not cross-buy. You have to buy that on every platform you buy it on. So I rebought that. And I bought... What else did I get? I had a coupon for Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, which is supposed to be really good. And so I used that and got that. And then I got Half-Life Alyx at full price. So we'll start with ones I played first to the ones I played most recently. So I haven't played the Walking Dead one at all. It was just a thing I felt compelled to use the coupon for. So it's just kind of sitting in my library. Arizona Sunshine has all the DLC in it, which I like Arizona Sunshine. It's a really fun, game that it does its absolute best to simulate real-world gun physics in a world without recoil or weight. So it's not perfect, but it's a fun game. And on the PC, it looks way prettier than it does on the Quest.
I should hope so.
The Quest has to really scale that one down to get the Quest version to work. And it's night and day compared to the 2 games. Robo Recall is Robo Recall, except for PC. It's the same game, and there was not much scaling down for the Quest version, so it was practically the exact same product. The most interesting one to talk about, though, is Half-Life Alyx. So, unfortunately, I tried to stream a little bit of it to show Vol and Fern a little bit of it before the show, and I was stuck in a puzzle level because it's Half-Life. Like, this is a Half-Life game. Some of the levels are the later levels are all shooty bang bang levels. The middle levels are probably all gimmick levels, and the early to middle game is all puzzle levels with barnacles and head crabs everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a whole lot of not showing them what the gunplay is like, and a whole lot of what can I grab in the environment to stick it in the barnacle and not shoot anything because the whole room will explode.
A lot of double checking to make sure head crabs were dead.
Yeah, so one of the things I like about these, in the original Half-Life, the head crabs can play dead. I mean, to start to learn when they're dead after a while, but when you're just getting used to the head crabs, you don't know if they're dead or not. So, after it falls off a zombie's head, in Alyx, you can crouch down, pick up the head crab, flip it over, and if it has a little red brain sphere that has a little bit of a glow to it, you know that it's still alive. And if you put it back down, it's going to wake back up eventually and come try and eat you after you walk a little past it. If it's not glowy, you can put the head crab back down and it's all hunky-dory. Or you can feed it to a barnacle. And the barnacle will get stuck chewing on it for a while.
Feed it to the barnacle.
Yeah, that's what I did a few times. So, the most impressive thing about Alyx is while it will not look like that if you're watching somebody play it, when you're actually playing it, the sheer number of crap you can pick up and just goof off with in the middle of a level is absolutely absurd. And this is something that is not very well conveyed unless you have the headset on your head.
Because it didn't look very interesting to me. It looked like it looked the same as basically Half-Life 2. Like, oh well, there's random lumps in the environment that you can gravity gun up and then drop them again. That was pretty much all I saw you doing.
Yeah, and this
everything was in the dark, so we couldn't really see a whole lot at all.
Oh, you came in when I got to the super dark part of the head crab level, or the barnacle level.
Which was full of explosive barrels, because of course it was.
All of them daisy-chained together, where there is no configuration you can move them in such a way that you just don't instantly die if they explode. And so Alex doesn't have the gravity gun, so she can't lift, super de-duper heavy things easily. And the game does part of the reason it's so fun just to pick up random junk is because every item feels like it has the appropriate durability and weight for what item it is. And I was messing around earlier. I was trying to move a big explosive barrel out of the way of a barnacle. I was afraid I was going to knock it over into it. And so I could move the gas canister relatively easily, but it would eat up an entire hand, and it would always hang a little low. But I could get those out of the way just fine. But the big red exploding barrel under it, Alex is like a 5'2" girl. She's not Superman here. To move that thing, you have to crouch down and start managing it and grabbing it by the proper weight points where the weight's going to distribute properly so you can hug that stupid thing, pick it up, and move it. Otherwise, it ain't going to go anywhere.
You're doing that from the outside.
Yeah, it would be if you saw the real-life cameras of that, but... You have to get this thing picked up by the base and lift with what would be Alex's back to get it up and moving.
You don't lift with your back, man.
Well, that's the easy way to do it. But
although this does kind of explain what Alex was doing for most of the sequels and the episodic games.
Recovering from a back injury.
That and faffing around with random objects.
So here's the other thing that makes the game fun. There's I've never been super into the Half-Life series. I've played them and liked them, but haven't been a super fan of them. But it works so much better when the protagonist has a mouth.
When they're actually able to express their own opinion instead of just doing what they're told.
Yeah, she isn't Gordon the Mute. So, and she has this little earpiece where she's talking to this guy named Russell, who I'm going to assume dies because I haven't heard of him in Half-Life 2.
Yeah, he seems like a dick to me from what I've heard from him.
And I really like him. He's a bit of an airhead, but he's a fun little mission control dude. So he's probably gonna die. And yeah, it's Alex has to go save her dad, and along the way, early in the missions where she's first leaving the HQ, she finds a brain-damaged Vortigaunt who sends her along and wants her to also save his people while she's there. And so that's the story so far. And right now I'm on my way to the facility where they're holding everybody, and we'll see where the story goes from there. But they're actually trying to make this a real video game with a real video game story. It's not just a VR toy box or sandbox, which it is, but that's not all it is. There's a video game here too, which is really rare for VR. Most games are obsessed with being a sandbox first and a game second.
Mm-hmm.
You can, if you are not easily distracted or obsessive like I am and have to pick up every single barrel and see if there's a secret underneath it, you can totally ignore the sandbox elements and there's a proper video game here.
Yep, and it's more Half-Life.
Yeah, and it's from so far a fairly good video game. I do not like the laser sights they put on the stupid pistol, but other than that, everything else has made everything pretty good. Also, I really want to hold that pistol with two hands and look with both eyes down the sights instead of just one, because right now I have it calibrated to my left eye, and this makes me miss shots so badly ever since I replaced the iron sights with those stupid laser sights, and I can't take them off.
Maybe somebody will come out with a mod for it.
Yeah, there's no real way to hold the gun with two hands. Right now, because you have to hold the controllers so the game knows where your hands are, and you're usually doing something with your other hand, like hanging onto something or trying to get ready to pick up something or gravity glove it. But yeah, it's a thing. where those upgrades are a bit obnoxious. When you get the option to gain the flashlight, yeah, you're going to be doing something with your offhand. Your gun hand is the weapon you're going to need to be using for offensive actions, and it's going to be the one where you're going to be wanting to see the enemies that are in front of it. So I stuck this thing on my offhand because I was doing something with the right hand when I got the flashlight, thinking I'd be able to change it later or something. No, you cannot. It is stuck on my offhand permanently, and I can't get it off. And so this has led to some very hectic and silly situations where I will be attempting to see where the heck I'm getting zombied on from in a dark room with the flashlight, while also needing to reach into my backpack with that hand to grab some ammo to put it in the gun. So the other thing is the guns in this game do not auto-reload. There is no reload the gun function. Instead, you have to pull the magazine out of your backpack. You'll find magazines throughout the world. And you have to eject the empty magazine and put in the new magazine. Or in the case of the shotgun, you have to load the shells individually. And you can load only 2 at a time. Up to a total of 6. Now, the fun part is, like a real gun, if there's a bullet in the chamber, you do not have to flick the switch to chamber around. So if you use all but the last shot in a magazine, you don't have to waste time rechambering around. But if you do use the entire magazine, the chamber is going to be empty. So when you put a new magazine in there, you have to flip the switch to make it chamber a new round. So you need to remember to do that every single time you reload that stupid gun. So counting your shots is very important as you're playing. And I actually really like this. It feels very natural to how guns are supposed to function.
It's a push-button magic reload.
Well, you can chamber around by flicking a switch on the side of the gun. But so you just tap the Y button to chamber a new round. But it's something else you have to remember to do. And you do have to put the bullets, you have to put the magazine where the magazines go in the gun. You can't miss, or you'll just wind up rubbing the gun and the magazine against each other. You have to put it in the gun. You have to put the shells in the shell holders in the shotgun.
Yeah, the thing I don't think you're really appreciating here is how much this gimmick doesn't work if you aren't the one doing it. like you can describe this all you want, but it actually sounds really silly when you say it.
So it sounds really obnoxious or really silly, but it's a fun touch because part of this thing's a VR game, right? So you're in a VR world manipulating objects, and it's more stuff to manipulate and think about, but it's also incorporated into gameplay as something you have to take into account that you need to do.
From the outside, it looks like Surgeon Simulator hijinks.
Yeah, this is the thing with describing VR games, and the reason I didn't get them at all until I tried VR, tried it seriously anyway, is you cannot convey the experience of VR through words or through video. It's something you have to quantify and codify in your own brain by being there and seeing everything in person. Because the other thing is, while you're in VR, you have depth attached to everything. And if you just watch a video of VR, that depth is not there. So you cannot get a feel for how things actually are going. So people can tell you Half-Life Alyx looks great and look at all these cool things in the world, and you are not going to understand if you're watching a video of it. It's a very different experience when you pick up a pen, take the cap off, and can draw on the windows.
Is that a thing you can actually do?
Yes.
Oh dear, we have achieved peak faffing about.
I bet the first thing ever drawn was a penis.
I think that's mandated by law at this point.
If it makes you feel better, I wrote Trump 2020 on the window.
I mean, same thing.
I was surprised they didn't just ban you from Steam the moment you did that.
Well, I sideload it through the Oculus multi-tool loader. I don't load it directly through Steam VR. It shows up as now playing on Steam, though, so I guess they could see if they really wanted to.
If they really cared.
They have to jump through a few more hoops to see the screen, though. So I genuinely enjoy what I've played so far, even though I'm still very early in the game and have not even encountered enemies with guns yet. That's how early in the game I'm at.
Okay, and you're still playing with head crabs.
Yeah, I'm still playing with basic head crabs. I saw one room that had 2 poison head crabs in it, and the new armored head crab. I don't remember these in the original Half-Life 2 or Half-Life 1. These are head crabs that are spiky, and they have an incredibly thick hide that will take, no joke, 20 shots from a handgun to kill, unless you hit them underneath where their glowing red little head crab brain is.
Okay.
So you have to wait for them to rear up and jump at you, and you've got to get your sight lined up. This is why I put the laser sight on to begin with, to be sure I hit these dudes. And you've got to hit them correctly. Otherwise, your shot's just going to hit the armored shell and do nothing. And like usual, one shot isn't going to kill a zombie in the head. You got to pop them multiple times and hope the head crab dies with it when you're hitting the head crab too. So there's a whole lot of guesswork involved of, okay, how many shots did I actually land on that zombie's head, and is the head crab dead with him? Let me check. Oh, there's another one. I'll try and check the head crab on the ground while holding off the other zombie. And unfortunately, I couldn't show off any of those situations on the level I was in. But it's in general been a very good time so far. The other thing is I've been really impressed with the game with is they clearly had a budget, because every single item in the game has the durability of the item correlate to how you're holding it and where on the object it would naturally be strongest. Like if I pick up a standard beer bottle with a long neck, for instance, if I grab it by the neck and smash it on something, it'll break really easy. If I grab it by where you would normally grab a beer bottle and like around the base of the body and tap the bottom on the wall or something, I'm going to have to hit it really hard to get it to break.
That's pretty cool.
So the game takes into account all that stuff. And that's a big reason it's so different from other VR games. There's no cheap shortcuts taken anywhere with any of the toys that are just laying around that you can play with. It's all actually thought out and real. There's a sense of weight and durability to everything that's in the world. Now, there are a few shortcomings with the game. It's not the 10 out of 10 perfect that everybody's saying it is. It is a huge step up from what we're used to with VR, but it's got a few issues. Number one is, Alex, get a holster.
Maybe you will.
Maybe, who knows? Because right now there's a problem where you do not store your gun anywhere. It exists in hammer space. All of your weapons exist in hammer space, and so does your multi-tool. And to summon them to your hand, you have to right-click the stick in, and then while clicked in, move your hand in the direction of the item you want with a menu that appears around your hand. And it's really clunky. And I do not like it.
That doesn't show up on the stream.
Yeah, so it's really, really clunky. You can hot swap the weapon away to your base hand and return it to whatever you were holding previously, but you can't easily switch from like your pistol to your shotgun or your shotgun to your multi-tool or something without pulling up this stupid radio menu. And that gets really, really obnoxious really, really fast, and it would just be way easier if she could put the thing inside a coat pocket or at a holster on her belt or something, like every other VR game's done and has been fairly successful with. The other thing is, all her magazines are stored in her backpack. So this means anytime you need to store away any magazine you find in the environment, or get a new one, you have to do the incredibly awkward overhand reach into your back and grab from the backpack and pull it out.
Ew.
Now, I do not know why we can't just keep them in a jacket pocket or a front pant pocket, or literally just put it in the waistband of your pants.
If I had to guess,
better than this.
if I had to guess, I would say that it's because all of the things that you suggested as alternatives are more ambiguous as far as the device would be concerned.
I guess so. And they do make manipulating objects a big part of the game. So some games have had trouble with that, where you will sometimes be trying to grab an object that's relatively close to you and accidentally pull a magazine out of your jacket or on your ammo belt or whatever. But I feel like there was a better way we could do this. Because the reach over your back motion is really wonky and not very comfortable to do standing up or sitting down. So those are my only real two big complaints about the controls of the game, though. Everything else works fine. It thankfully supports blink movement, which is way easier on your brain and your motion sickness than standard movement.
Yeah, that's baffling.
So the way blink movement works, for those that don't know, this is standard movement in VR now because it's just so much more comfortable than using normal movement when depth's involved. Because when there is depth involved on your screen and you look around, your brain thinks you're in a real environment even if you know you're not. And if you move like normal by pushing the stick forward, you have to move your legs in time with the characters for the rate of speed you're going, or you're going to get sick. There's no two ways about that. It's going to happen. Blink movement instead summons a circular arc. It has an arc go from your hand to a point on the ground, and you can adjust it by adjusting your wrist and letting go, and you will teleport to that spot. And you can rotate the stick as you're after you pushed it forward to summon the little teleporting icon to spin yourself in a direction after you teleport, and it will act as though you are going through a natural, very fast blink of your eyes, and you will be at the new spot. And this is way easier. This is way better than moving normally.
Absolutely appalling on video, though.
It really does. But in terms of puke prevention,
it is infinitely more comfortable than conventional movement. You can also supports degree turning in blink mode, so you can turn. You don't. Well, it supports this type of turning in normal conventional movement as well. But I don't know why you would mix and match. I tried it for a bit today, and it was giving me a headache. But you can tap on the other stick a direction, or left or right, and it will turn you by a preset amount of degrees for every tap, and do the same blinking screen flash to make it look like you just blinked. And that makes turning way more comfortable. I have it set to 35 degrees every time I turn. That seems to be a pretty comfortable degree for me to turn. In games where I need to turn tighter, like Arizona Sunshine, I set it to like somewhere around 20. And in bigger games like Robo Recall, where I need to be able to rapidly spin around, I set it to 45.
Yeah.
Or 90 in some levels for some challenge missions. But yeah, that type of movement, I'm glad they support it. I'm glad it's becoming a standard because it takes VR from that thing I'm apprehensive about to fully playable. It is just not feasible to play VR for long term for me with conventional movement. I can't do it. Any game that doesn't support blink movement is a big turnoff.
Yeah.
So
you're hardly alone on that one.
I feel I will be, anytime I talk about a VR game, if it has blink movement and does it well, I'll be mentioning that because that's a big selling point for VR. And I think that's about it for Alex so far. I'm not very far in the game yet. I don't know if I'll be able to finish it this week. I don't know how long the game is, and I don't know how much I'm going to be working.
All right.
So I will try to get it done and have conclusions on it next week. But so far, that's been the majority of my week, is finishing up Mega Man Zero, goofing around, upgrading my PC, and playing a little bit of Alex today and last night.
All right. In that case, we should probably take a break.
We should. So here's some music, and we will be right back. And we're back.
Yep. Yes, indeed.
Before we jump into news, I do need to put one caveat for people that may decide to do the route I did with Oculus Link.
Don't.
You're going to have to jump through a few hoops to get it to work, and this includes the dang thing won't turn off unless you install some third-party software.
Hold on. What?
Yeah, Link is still in beta, and there is no way to turn it off. You cannot turn off the headset while it's linked to your computer. So you have to get a third-party tray tool to sideload everything, and then kill the app completely in every sub-process it runs by pressing the stop button in
That's kind of lousy.
Oculus Display Tool.
That's really dumb.
That's really funny.
It is also really funny, but it's still really dumb.
So the link feature is still, they have in big warning letters, this is in beta, dudes. You need to be careful when you're downloading it. It
know what you're in for.
It is not anywhere close to finished yet. So just keep that in mind. You're going to need to get Tray Tool, and you're going to need to jump through some hoops if you want to go the Quest Link route.
Oh dear, oh dear. Alright, in that case, we should have a look at some news. I don't think there's any emails. Let me just double check.
I checked. There weren't any earlier, unless someone magically showed up in the last 30 minutes.
It's happened before.
Did we check the promotions?
Yeah, check that. There's nothing. No joy today.
Sarah, this is email getting filtered into promotions.
Oh, I can't believe that.
Well, he kind of made it sound like a promotion, so.
Alright, so we have some little newslets because there's no big news lately. Who wants to first pick?
Well, the thing that was big news, well, the thing that suddenly and precipitously caused the obliteration of everything that wasn't about it during the week was the source code leaks for CSGO and TF2. I don't know if you guys noticed, but it completely took over my social media feed and my YouTube recommends and all that stuff.
It was definitely a thing happening, but it didn't eat everything on my end of feeds.
Well, basically, the upshot was that lots and lots of people panicked, and it was because there was so little was known about it. But pretty much, the long and short of it was that somebody leaked some source code from a couple of years ago used in TF2 and CSGO, which enabled remote running of code.
Mm-hmm.
The idea basically being that if somebody was using the hack and you just happened to play on a server in CSGO or TF2, that person could run code on your computer using the exploit.
Oh, that's inconvenient.
So they could inject and run code to anybody that was sharing a server with them. That was the theory. I'm not sure if there were any actual successful executions of this. That was theoretically possible. I haven't seen any reports of whether or not anybody actually managed to do it. But basically, the whole thing stemmed out of a bunch of drama in the source community, as far as I can tell. People who it was very hard to garner actual good information on what went down from the reviews from the articles that came out, because there are a bunch of people making a bunch of different claims, and there's lots of historical bad blood between the people involved, and everybody's claiming this or that or the other. It's a rather complicated situation involving somebody who was miffed because he got banned from some community for being allegedly racist or transphobic or whatever, which I think is an incredibly crummy reason for the most part.
Because everybody screaming knobstick.
Well, yes, but so is everybody else on the internet. I don't understand why there are certain types of being a knob on the internet universally condemned, whereas other types of being a knob on the internet are considered laudable. Like, there doesn't seem to be any clear standard on that. But regardless, at any rate, there was a lot of bitterness and recrimination going on, but lots of chat logs, probably both fake and genuine, are floating around, which are supposedly to do with it. But ultimately, what happened is that somebody released some source code, and it's basically precipitated a whole bunch of people saying, no, don't run these games, don't boot up TF2, don't boot up CSGO, because we don't know the extent of the power that these particular exploits will give the people that are using it.
This sounds conspicuously like a analog to real world shenanigans that are going on right now.
Yeah,
just saying.
More or less, yeah. But yeah, there's an investigation going on about it from Valve, and the last time a big hack, like a big leak like this took place, Gabian pretty much personally destroyed that person.
Good times.
Like, really vengefully. So I wouldn't want to be in the shoes of the leaker right now. And I'm not talking about in terms of internet drama either. I'm talking about he destroyed the person's life for doing that. For doing the leak. Gabian is extremely vengeful when it comes to taking care of his products. If you try and undermine them in any way, you can expect to end up in jail for a significant portion of your life. So,
oh, Gabe.
And he went through an elaborate ruse to lure the person out and then get them arrested by the FBI as well. So, it was a masterfully executed operation, which I think would probably skirt the bounds of the law a little bit, but I think he got his way in the end. But yeah.
Clearly, the solution to this problem is we all need to boycott CSGO and TF2 until a CSGO 2 and TF3 can be made. And this may take, 18 to 24 months. So we just need to keep the games in quarantine for that long. And then after we flatten their player base and gotten a new game, we can move on.
I'm detecting some salt.
Quite a bit of salt, yes.
The sodium chloride levels are gradually increasing here.
Just a bit.
Yeah. The entire thing, as far as I can tell, for the end user, turned out to be much ado about nothing. But I don't know how long it will take for the fine details about this to come out, or if they even will. But it did have the entire community of, like, CSGO. Isn't that like pretty much the biggest game on Steam in terms of users?
Yeah.
It's like over 1 million concurrents daily, sort of thing.
I think it's the second only to Dota in terms of concurrent players on any of Valve's first-party games they own.
Yeah, so it had that entire community in a humongous panic, and I'm not really sure exactly where it's going to go from there.
Don't know where it's going to see us go, you mean?
Boo!
Ugh.
Why do you do this?
It's not super up to date source code. It's older source code, but it's still enough that nobody's really sure whether or not it's going to actually cause a problem long term. Presumably they would have moved to ensure that it will be fine, and I think Valve was very slow about responding to it, and I don't have a copy of their actual response here, but they are aware of it, and they have been dealing with it. So
they've ID'd the dude too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I think that it was actually somebody who's got a history of this type of beef with Valve, probably their ex-Valve or something.
Oh joy!
But yeah, so it did cause a couple of the larger gaming communities on Steam to stop and double take for the better part of a day or two, because nobody knew what was going to happen. Everybody was worried that they're going to get a code injection if they try and play the game. But yeah, I think it's more or less boiled down to not being a big deal now.
He was apparently fired or kicked off whatever server he was working with for problematic behavior, including racism, homophobia, and transphobia.
Problematic. Like, anytime anybody says something was problematic, what that immediately says to me is didn't cause any actual harm.
Yeah, pretty much.
So anyway, so it was a big debacle. It doesn't really boil down to meaning anything in the end, as far as I can tell. But it does have the sleeping tiger of Valve rather up in arms about it, and they have a lot of weight to throw around. In Gabe's case, literally.
Gabe is a very fat. He's a very fat tiger.
Oh dear. All right, so that's the thing that happened. Let's see. So I suppose as I started this ball rolling, let's go back to Fallout 76, shall we?
Do we have to?
But now, this time, instead of saying how basically slightly alright it is, now we're going to make fun of their general incompetence again. As it should be.
Oh, they broke it again. Yeah, so after you were praising the game earlier...
I wouldn't call it light praise, maybe.
I don't know, but given what they've been receiving more commonly, it was pretty effusive.
Yeah, fair. Saying the game is basically alright is much better than what they're used to. Alright, so, yeah, because it's Bethesda, of course, they can't actually do anything without breaking everything. So there's a bug in Fallout 76 where if you get killed by an NPC, said NPC will take your weapon. And never give it back.
It's his now.
It's his
Why
now,
would
it's
they
gone.
do that? That's mean.
Because they hate you, and Bethesda can't code.
Maximum bully.
They never actually congealed Fallout 76 with NPCs in mind.
So now whenever you go out in Fallout 76, it's like being in the wildy in RuneScape. You're going to lose your rune skimmy. Wow,
yes, okay.
What?
Jeez, now I'm getting horrible flashbacks.
I'm afraid I didn't ever play enough RuneScape to spend much time in whatever they refer to as whatever would be referred to as nullsec there.
There is an area that is incredibly dangerous, and PvP is enabled. Yeah. Where if you die, all but your 3 most valuable items in the amount they vendor for are left on the ground where you died.
Yep.
And all the hardest quests and things to the best looter in that area.
So if you die, you lose all of your stuff.
And that's many hours down the tube.
Although I do...
Just gone.
During my little bits and pieces of poking around in there, I did manage to successfully hide enough that I was able to sneak up and steal people's stuff just as it despawned. I got a lot of good stuff that way, and then got killed.
That's mean.
There were always poachers right at the edge, waiting for somebody to go in there and die so they could try and make a mad dash to steal their crap.
Yeah. It was me.
Why are you so bully?
I don't know. I just want to take people's stuff.
Yeah, notably, a bunch of the people at the border would never attack you. They would just wait for you to do something stupid and get killed, and then they would just come take all your crap.
Yeah, if you got killed, it was usually by your own fault because you did something stupid.
So all of Fallout 76 is like RuneScape now, is basically what we're saying. They brought themselves up to old RuneScape tier.
When did RuneScape launch?
Let's not think about that now.
RuneScape.
No,
released
don't look.
4th of January 2001. So a little under 20 years ago.
2001? Jeez. I thought it was earlier than that.
No, it's the first public version of RuneScape released in beta in January 2001.
Okay.
Yep. They updated it to the RuneScape everybody knows fairly soon after that, but the original version was pretty early.
Yeah, released beta version on 4th of January 2001, operated out of the creator's parents' house in Nottingham.
That sounds more like it.
Oh my goodness. RuneScape. Anyway, I should probably grab another topic.
Yeah. Aside from one small...
Still Bethesda.
It is still Bethesda. Okay, go for it.
So, Bethesda, as everybody is aware, has published 2 new Doom reboot games over the course of the past few years. The Doom from 2016 and the most recent one. Now, the guy who is their composer and sound engineer is widely lauded as being quite good at his job, and he's done an excellent job on composing and pacing the soundtracks for the games. I mean, I know Ari doesn't listen to game music like ever, but it's regarded as having been an excellent deployment of sound engineering and compositional skill for those games. So they recently released the Doom Eternal soundtrack digitally for those who have got the collector's edition. And as it turns out, they sound terrible. Absolutely awful. It's completely apocalyptically bad. It turns out that they didn't actually involve the composer, Mick Gordon, in any way at all. He wasn't. There are tracks that he had mixed involved in that are on the soundtrack, but a lot of them have just been sort of jammed on there without any proper sound engineering being done to them. So all of the hard work he put into composition, he's basically all of that work has been befouled by whichever marketing drone was involved in just jamming them arbitrarily onto the OST. And he's very, very unhappy about this, and he's commented publicly that he doesn't have anything to do with this production, and it's very unlikely he's willing to work with id Software anymore after this. Nobody knows exactly who is to blame for this ham-handed handling of the situation, but given Bethesda's the publisher,
yeah,
I think it's most likely Bethesda incompetence behind this again, and they have let and as a result, they have let the composer sound engineer responsible for a very well executed soundtrack that is characteristically part of their new incarnation of Doom has just walked out the door, and they've just let him.
Bethesda,
so
stop.
So no matter how they follow up on it, it's not going to have the same character to it. It's somebody else is going to have to do the sound work. There's just no need for it. That's the thing.
No,
there's absolutely no need for this to happen. They just let it happen because they're stupid. Like, why? Why Bethesda? Why can't you find your butt cheeks with both hands, a flashlight, and a GPS device? What is wrong with you?
Probably because their butt cheeks glitched out and are on the other end of the map.
It's like, oh, is this a worldwide shortage of canvas situation? That we can't bother to properly put together the collector's edition because there's a worldwide shortage of Mick Gordon caused by us not bothering to ask him. Like, what? It's just it beggars belief. Every single time there's any kind of significant product launch or release that is tied to Bethesda in any way, it just always collapses into a singularity of stupid. Why?
I will remind you that they are also responsible for only one multiplayer mode being in Doom Eternal.
It just works.
Still can't believe they made that massive backstep. It's just ridiculous.
There's so many bad decisions, and there doesn't appear to be any logic behind them. I mean, if they have anything resembling a decent line of reasoning for the idiotic things they do, they could at least, come out and supply that reasoning so that at least their apologists would be able to defend them to some extent. But even the apologists aren't bothering to defend Bethesda anymore for the most part. It's like, there's only so much stupid any given person can handle.
Yeah, you can only take so much.
Yeah, and normally I would expect that oh well, this is the sort of thing that precipitates from some sort of legal dispute over ownership of the tracks or whatever. But apparently, there's no such thing. There's no legal record suggesting that there's any real dispute. So it
it's
just seems like that there's been a breakdown in communications, and they just decided to slap it together and rush it out the door rather than make sure the job was done right.
Probably id Software going, man, I don't want to talk to those guys anymore, and hanging up the phone after the game went out the door and went gold.
I wouldn't be surprised.
But this is an after the fact production, the soundtrack.
Yeah.
And I think that this is just more, oh, let's just rush it out the door from the publisher more than anything else. It's not because that had to be this way. It's because they couldn't be bothered fixing it because they've got utter contempt for their customers.
Yeah, collector edition benefits are almost solely in the purview of the publisher. I doubt it had anything to do with this.
But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, though, right? Like the people who buy collector's editions are the super fans who you have to rely on to market your game for you by word of mouth. They're the people who you want coming back every time. They represent your surefire revenue stream that you're going to depend on to raise the game's profile and keep it in the public eye. Why do you pick that group to supply crappy nylon bags to when you promised canvas? Like, why do you have to spit in the face of those people, the ones that you need the most? Because, I mean, it sure hasn't paid off for them with Fallout 76, has it? Like, a handful of them are grudgingly continuing to play and defend the thing, but most of them walked out in disgust. You know, the ones that hadn't already walked out after being disgusted at Fallout 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fallout 4 was the last straw. That broke it for me.
It just wasn't nearly as good as it should have been.
It's just that they're constantly looking to do things as cheaply and quickly as possible. And, you know, you can have cheap and fast, but remember what the third leg to that is.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can only ever pick two. You can do it cheaply, you can do it quickly, or you can do it properly. And you can only have two.
Yep. And no more than
and
two.
Bethesda has decided which two they're picking, it looks like.
Hell, half the time Bethesda lately has been saying, no, we only need one of those.
This is an ongoing trend with them at this point. They just don't care. They think that they can just ride their IP's name all the way to the bank every time, and people just aren't going to put up with it forever. They've been getting away with it in a more or less sense, but I don't think that they... there's every indication that they don't feel enough embarrassment over what happened for Fallout 76. Like, if you look at the interviews with, what's his name, Hines, was it?
Yeah, that dude.
Like, he's just basically saying, oh, well, I mean, it's not really our fault. Like, who else's fault is it? Who else is involved in this?
It's not our fault the players don't like the game we made.
Actually, your only job is to make something the players like. There's no other job. That's the one thing that you do at work every day.
It's what you're there for.
But yeah, so this is just another Bethesda gaffe to add to the ever-growing pile, and frankly, I'm sort of annoyed that these things keep happening, in the sense that I feel like they should have gone out of business by now, but apparently there are still just barely enough apologists to keep them in work.
You've got a couple of big name games coming up too, which is Starfield and whatever Elder Scrolls is coming up next. I think we're up to 6 or something.
It's 6, but I don't think it's even made it very far in development.
I don't think they've made anything. They've got their pre-rendered cutscene, and I doubt they've got anything else. I think that if they had anything worth showing for Starfield, they would have showed it by now.
Yep.
I think that we're headed for another situation where they're behind the 8 ball on their development schedule, and they're going to release something unfinished, and it's going to be a disaster.
Or the other scenario, I think, is just as likely, as they ran out of money.
It's possible. Yeah. They've really been pushing the envelope on cheaping out on everything that they do, so they're trying to save money on that end. But on the other end, they're not going to be taking in nearly as much revenue, considering they were probably budgeting based on ongoing money coming into Fallout 76 over a course of years. And I doubt that they're turning that much in microtransactions compared to what they'd expected at this point.
No, I think that's why they actually put Fallout first out, is so they could try and glean a little bit more money out of it.
I want to know how many people are subscribed to that, who they are, and are we allowed to publicly shame them?
Where they live, so we can put bags of dog poo on their front doorsteps.
So
Yeah.
that game in no way justifies any kind of recurring payment at all.
It really doesn't. The world's big enough, and it only has so many people on the server. So if you really wanted to, you can play it and avoid other players. You don't need to go to a private server.
You know, given the way it's structured, I bet you could just turn off the online functionality if you had found the right quote fix unquote for the code.
I'm sure there's an INI file somewhere where with just one tweak the game will run fine but won't connect to the servers.
Yeah, someone would have found that by now.
Well, maybe
why
they have. I haven't been following up on it.
That's part of the reason why I think it's pinging home every time it renders something. It's like, yeah, we still online? Yeah, okay.
No, it's just a matter of time until somebody manages to mod that out, I think.
Sooner or later, someone's just going to pick up the entire map, dump it into Fallout 4, and say, here we go.
Yeah, I don't think it would be that hard either, considering how mysteriously compatible the two are.
The geography wouldn't be an issue at all.
It would also... You could just set up a dummy server to send back a confirmed ping verification and just let people run bootleg copies of the game that ping the dummy server. Plenty of games that have always online DRM have people that run those for them.
Yeah, maybe we could Google it.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm basically saying is that this is going to end up to be another classic Bethesda situation where, oh well, the customers, the gamers, they mod the game back to what it was supposed to be on launch, which is a single-player Fallout game.
Yeah. I did run, actually, just on a random tangent, by the way, Larry Correa's comedy books. Random scene in a post-apocalyptic mall. The whole place has been cleaned out except for one game shop, and all it's got in it is copies of Fallout 76. Even at the end of the world, where people are starved for entertainment, nobody wanted it.
Yeah, it's like we've seen that in the real world back when the whatchamacallits, the panic buys were going on in supermarkets. Everything was cleaned out except all of the pizzas that still had pineapple on them were still there.
Yeah, you do see, of course, those photos where the beers have all been cleaned out except for the Coronas.
I'm not sure that that's real.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I don't think that that's real. I think that those are staged.
I'm hoping so.
I know from personal experience, though, that the Hawaiian pizza got left behind. Because for a while there, it was really hard to find a pizza that didn't have pineapple on it at the supermarket.
Well, pineapple's like one of the kings of pizza sins.
Boo. I like pineapple.
Right up there.
On a Hawaiian
right
pizza.
Up there with like mayonnaise and other weird crap.
Yeah, mayonnaise on pizza, there's no excuse for.
Except, like, pineapple's like a normal thing, apparently, that people accept as a pizza topping, but it's still just as bad as mayonnaise on a pizza.
Well, you say people accept it, and it's got sort of a public profile of acceptance, but the reality is that people don't buy it.
Yeah.
Like, there's you can tell there are like lots and lots of different like oven pizza brands will sell pizza under the particular model name, we'll call it Supreme, right? But you can tell which Supremes incorporate pineapple, because those will be the ones where Supreme and Hawaiian are left, rather than just Hawaiian. And it's always because there's pineapple included.
You don't put pineapple on a Supreme pizza.
It's not a matter of whether you do or you don't. What I'm talking about is the fact that people are sensitive to the presence of pineapple, and those pizzas go unsold. Like, they literally expire in the supermarket fridge.
Gross.
I see it with regularity, because nobody wants to purchase them. So even though it does have a certain degree of public acceptance, we're talking, a ridiculous ratio of people would rather buy anything else.
How did we get onto pineapple on pizza again?
Mushrooms are best topic.
Because it's about things that are left
abomination.
behind. It's things that are left behind in the apocalypse.
Yeah, there we go.
The only other pizza that is sometimes left as regularly as the Hawaiian ones that I see is these. For some reason in New Zealand, every pizza brand they sell in the supermarket sells a cheese and spinach pizza, and it just has cheese and spinach on it.
What type of spinach, though?
What kind of
I
cheese?
don't know, it's just spinach.
Well, I mean, is it like chunky spinach or is it like just spinach scatterings?
I'm not a connoisseur of spinach. I've never purchased one, so I don't know what it looks like, and you can't tell from the box.
It's just spinach and just cheese.
No food product that comes in a box ever looks like what's on the box.
This is
So-
true. Oh boy. So anyway, yeah, next piece of news we can randomly tangent off.
All right. This was a funny one, and I just wanted to get it because it was topical. Where is it? So, I was foreshadowing WoW Classic earlier.
Boom, boom, boom.
There has been a suspension in World of Warcraft after ZG's release because a hunter named ZG Bat Corona.
Honestly, this hunter should have known this was going to happen.
I don't think he should have. I don't think he should have because that's freaking ridiculous.
I mean,
So
honestly,
But
he did it for the
who is
clicks.
endangered by that?
No one. But
the
it's Blizzard.
Chinese owners of Blizzard. And this is why I put it in the actual show topics instead of just as a note for me to bring up, because we need to reinforce that, yes, Shadowlands may look really good, but these are the people that ban you for having a pet named Corona because China said so.
Yeah.
Pickle.
No, I honestly
Yeah,
think he did this on purpose.
Well, I mean, obviously, like this was done as a joke, but I don't think you should be banned for making jokes. And I doubt that. I don't know. The real question here is it Blizzard policy to ban any and everything which alludes to a virus because reasons that nobody's ever supplied why it's necessary to do so, or is this the work of some maverick dev who's just this maverick GM who's just seen everybody else is banning any mention of this, and maybe he should jump on the bandwagon because that's how you virtue signal these days.
Yeah, probably the second one.
I mean, do we ban everybody named car crashes? Those kill a lot of people too. How about heart attack? Can we ban everything related to heart attack that gets posted as a pet name? How about stroke? Like, how about cancer? I mean, the left loves to refer to everything that the right does as cancerous. So how about we just ban all that? Because that kills a whole lot more people than Wu-Flu does.
I mean, because this is just a weird wart on the already ridiculous moderation standards that the World of Warcraft maintains, but it's bled out everywhere else as well. Like the official policy on YouTube now is that if you say anything which contradicts what the World Health Organization says, well, you know, the Chinese Health Organization says, then that content is immediately slated for removal.
Even though the World Health Organization has proven beyond a doubt that their word cannot be trusted on this matter.
Not only can they not be trusted, but they're incompetent even when they're trying their best. So why exactly are they being taken as the gold standard of what is true and what is not?
Because
what reason
Google?
have you to do that?
Because Google is also owned by China.
Yeah, this is just an ideological stand that they're taking. I think that YouTube has long since forgotten who it was who built their business, who it was who built their platform, because they have replaced fully, the stats that I've heard is that they've replaced fully 50% of their views no longer come from conventional at-home content creators and are just postings and repostings of clips of mainstream news.
Yep.
They're 50% of their traffic. And that's something that they have done. This is not something that has happened naturally. This is something they have done by having the algorithms forcibly uprate the appearance of all of that mainstream media news because it's, quote, authoritative, unquote.
Yeah, you have to get third-party plugins that you have to update daily to kill the mainstream news from popping up in your feeds when you search for any, or just searches.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way to get rid of them.
Incidentally, a lot of that content is also stolen, by the way. We actually had a law in Australia passed in the last week that any social media company, and that includes Google, now has to pay to use that content.
Well, I mean, they should, because they are moderating deliberately what you see and what you don't see. That makes them a publication platform, not a safe harbor.
More the point, they were just openly stealing content from news producers in Australia. like the news agencies, the media, the newspapers, all of that was getting absolutely nothing from the content that Google just took and reposted.
Yeah, well,
Well-
they've been trying to stretch the definition of safe harbor and stretch the definition of fair use as far as possible. And the only reason they've been doing it is because there hasn't been any legal force calling them out.
So hopefully
Yeah,
that will
it's,
change now.
Just remember, folks, all these companies that we rag on, they're all in bed with, say it with me now, China. China.
Yeah.
I can't do the Trump does it better.
Nobody can do it. Nobody can do it the way Donald Trump does it.
Oh
Just-
dear.
China.
All right, what's next?
China.
No.
So not China, but Japan, and by relation, maybe the other networks in the U.S. and UK as well. This is worth deep booping out. Japan, Nintendo accounts, whatever they call it now, Nintendo of Japan, whatever their online accounts are called. 160,000 people got hacked.
So they say it's Japan. And Nintendo's official line is that it's not the EU.
Or no EU, UK, or US accounts appear to have been involved in the hack, and it was Japanese only. Were those got
I'm
leaked?
going to contest that because my account also got hacked.
Yeah.
So no, check your accounts.
So yeah. While it doesn't look like they can get your credit card information from this hack, they can get personal information and use that to get your credit card.
Yeah.
So that if you answer honestly on your security questions, they can probably get your information from somewhere.
Yeah, you got to
whatever
just keep your
they are.
lies straight. It's fine.
Just be like my grandma and name the answer to every question blank.
She just types blank.
No, black. BLACK. That's her answer for every single one.
Oh, okay.
Up until she died, every account she registered, security question answer is always all lowercase black.
Can't fault her on that one.
That was the point. It was supposed to be nonsensical.
Yeah.
But consistent.
I mean, no one would guess it.
So yeah, I did not see anything in the article that's been updated since I read it in full. But I don't see anything in the update either that they're acknowledging that Nintendo of America or EU has had any accounts hacked. But might be a good idea to at least change your password and maybe look at an authenticator anyway if they're being targeted now. And from what I understand, this was because of Fortnite.
Of course it was.
I do not remember the exact reasoning, but a lot of people were saying this was Fortnite's fault.
It's always Fortnite's fault.
I wish I remembered because I posted it here when I knew it, and now it slipped out of my brain, and I thought it was funny. But yeah. So that's a thing to be aware of.
Yeah, but yeah, my account was compromised over the last week. I'm not sure if it was the same group, but yeah, you can actually put a authenticator on your Nintendo account, and I suggest you do it.
I'm getting too many of those on my phone.
Yeah, a lot of them are actually thankfully using the Google Authenticator, so it's just, one. But then you open that authenticator and then you just get a big long list of numbers. You have to find the right one.
Yeah. So that is that. And I think that about is it for the news. Y'all got anything else?
Only a couple of little nuggets about the upcoming Final Fantasy XIV patch, but I think we probably should actually play it.
Yeah, I don't know anything about it. I haven't even read the patch notes because I can't motivate myself to do so because I'm not in the current content yet because I was waiting
Agreed.
for you guys to catch up.
But I'm not in the current content either, and that makes it harder to play it.
I'm in the rut.
The thing is, it's all current content to you because you haven't played it before.
Yeah, but then you run into a bad dungeon and it's just...
well, you wouldn't have to if you would play with me. That way, at least we would be able to survive.
Or at least mock the terrible people together.
Like, because if we don't hurry up, we're not going to be able to do the Neo raids.
Yeah, raids. Can you actually go back and do Alexander at any point, or is there no one doing that
No,
anymore?
well, you can't go back and do Alexander unless you bring people with you because it's not. There's no reason for people to run it.
It's like a
But
roulette.
in the case of the, I think I'm fairly sure the Nia one is the everybody can do it raid where it's pitched at a difficulty that it's supposed to be puggable from the outset.
That's
Well,
always
although what Final Fantasy XIV considers puggable from the outset is very different to what Blizzard does.
yeah, in the case of WoW's parlance, puggable from the outset means you can just put some sort of drinky bird on the keyboard and it'll do the dungeon for you.
Like I did the original one of these, the 24-man raid back in A Realm Reborn, and even when you pug it, everyone pretty much brings their A game because they know that you're in for a bad time if any one of them doesn't pull their weight. Like you don't queue for it if you're intending to stand around, generally speaking, has been my experience, because it will just be bad for everybody if you do. Because oftentimes they will divide you forcibly into teams.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what they used to do. They don't do it as much anymore because they had to reduce the number of tanks, because originally you needed 6 tanks to do it.
That's a bit much.
And
You never get that.
There just weren't that many tanks in the game population, so they had to cut it down to 2. So they don't slice up the raid as much as they used to, but there's still not really the sort of latitude for mucking about that Raid Finder will give you.
Yeah, incidentally, I wonder what the tank numbers are like these days now that they put Gunbreaker in there.
Well, the thing is, from what I heard back when the Gunbreaker had just come out, is that you had a huge number of people playing Gunbreaker who had absolutely no idea how to play Gunbreaker.
Yeah, that sounds like
you didn't have the same problem where back when the Dark Knight came out, because you could get away. They were so overpowered when they came out that you could get away with just spamming your AOE constantly.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you did that, then plus or minus a little bit, you would pretty much not die in your leveling process because your tank was doing that. Of course, that wouldn't be enough for the new dungeons, but for the old ones where they could just outmass it with sinking down to that level, then you would usually be able to get through even if they were a retard. Apparently that wasn't so much the case for the Gunbreaker, and there were lots of people who would just do it wrong and everybody would wipe and they would screech and scream and blame everybody but themselves.
Yep. Okay, so yeah, the WoW classic thing.
Yeah, basically the only people who were good at Gunbreaker around launch were people who already, were max level on every other tank, so they knew tanking inside out, and therefore if they made mistakes as a Gunbreaker, it wouldn't be devastating because they knew the encounters. It was the people who were like, I want to be like Squall and have a Gunblade, and that was as far as they thought about it. Those are the people that were causing problems.
Yeah, and there was a lot of them.
In the long run in MMOs, introducing a new class that can perform the tanking role rarely increases the population permanently by a substantial amount.
Yeah.
Because that role just is a role people don't want to fill. It's a role with too much responsibility for people, and they're either completely turned off by it or they see it as a burden.
Yeah, it's usually because of the attitude of the player base. Like a lot of the people who might otherwise have been tanks in Final Fantasy were turned off by the constant screeching about the tanks not having enough DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if it's still like that. Maybe it's not quite as bad anymore. But there were times during the game's progress where the DPS checks were so stringent that it was pretty much expected that anytime that a tank could get away with it, they would switch to a DPS stance and flail away. That's not really the case anymore because they've not made it so the gap between being actively tanking and actively doing DPS is pretty much not the same as it was. It's not like you're not playing two different characters now. It's more a matter of they've rolled everything into the tanking rotation also being the DPS rotation, more or less, so that you aren't creating a huge discrepancy if you just do your job properly.
You just got to make sure you switch your right stance or aura or whatever on.
Well, I think that they've also sort of there's not so much a stance switching anymore. Like for instance, cleric stance has gone for healers, I think.
Yeah, it is.
And you can turn on and off your threat, but I don't think you have a DPS ability to turn on and off anymore. Ari, you've done more playing of a paladin recently than I have.
You can turn your threat off on and off, but you can't turn your. There's nothing to affect your damage output.
Yeah, because it used to be that the Paladin's Sword Oath didn't have the threat modifier, but did have increased damage. That's not in there anymore. So your damage is always the same. You can turn off your threat if it's important that you don't pull off the other tank for whichever reason, but you aren't, nerfing your damage if you aren't, throughout the course of the fight, stance dancing every time you know that the boss isn't going to hit you with something lethal in the next 5 seconds, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or if you're me, you can just go through a loading screen, have it auto deactivate, and then forget to turn it back on.
From the healer's side of thing, that was extremely annoying as well. Like, okay, you've got a boss phase where the healing's fairly light, so you need to switch to cleric stance and help out on the DPS, but then suddenly something goes pear-shaped. And now all of a sudden you need to really heal, and no, you've got to waste time turning on cleric stance first. That's if you remember to. If you forget to, you're going to do absolutely squat healing. So it just wasn't really good from that end of things.
I mean, there's just something to be said about getting in the groove in a fight under a roll, and then having to switch roles mid-fight.
Yeah.
That unless you are okay with that, it's not something a lot of people want to sign up for.
Yeah, well, the thing is that the level of skill at one point was demanded, I felt, was too high. And by that, I meant that the expectation was that you would, quote, play your class wrong, unquote, such as a tank that never used tanking stance, ever, because the DPS would be too low to hit the DPS checks if you did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you were expected to be good enough with your abilities that had threat modifiers baked in, and the tightness of your damage rotation that you would hold threat without any global threat modifier.
Yeah,
that was the expectation. Like you could do it because the DPS checks were built around it. It seemed, because you needed to be able to do that in order to get through them. But it wasn't using the class as intended. It was just sort of emergent, degenerate gameplay, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like we wound up in this boat with the way we scaled the numbers. So I guess we just got to keep going until we get to an X pack to fix it.
Alright, and that, I think, does it.
Yep, that's a full show for once.
We actually did a proper show.
I've got like a reasonable amount of confidence that the news cycle in video games is going to start to spool up again over the next few weeks, as things start to reopen because people get sick of being in lockdown for no good reason and so on. So maybe we'll be able to do more normal shows.
Maybe.
So, yeah, I think we are done. Anything else? Closing comments?
Nope, I think that's it for me.
You
All
got
right.
everything?
Whoever does the physics on characters in Beat Saber needs to fix arm cloth, breasts, and hair.
Presumably
also-
they're the same thing.
Well, they all flap around as though they are.
So we went through all the avatars available last night, and some of them are really broken or really impractical.
Hey, at least your head's not lodged in your shoulders anymore.
Yeah, the whack-a-mole problem got fixed at least. But
Fun.
But yeah, I guess we'll see y'all next week. Sayonara, bye bye.